Welcome to our weekly Forex market analysis call, and this is in preparation for the week of October 22nd to 26th, 2018. Just a quick disclaimer before we get started. This is for educational purposes only. Trading is a risky business, so please be careful with your money. All right, so as usual, we'll start off by taking a look at our calendar here. Okay, so nothing too critical coming up. We do have Reserve Bank of Australia a couple of times here. So anything that is out of ordinary that is said during the speech can have an impact on Australian dollar. So anytime a central banker is speaking, we just have to be mindful of the comments that come out in the speech. Other than that, not too much here. We have Bank of England Governor Carney speaking. So this will be important. Again, any of the comments that come out, that's what we'll have to pay attention to. Consumer confidence number, even though it says yellow here, it can have an impact on the market. So we'd pay attention to that. And then on Wednesday here, we have manufacturing PMI numbers out of the Eurozone. And generally, they will have an impact, especially the German manufacturing PMI number here. So that will be important. Then on Wednesday in the New York session, that's where we have the Bank of Canada rate statement and monetary policy report. And it looks like the market participants are looking for an interest rate hike out of Bank of Canada. Now, if there is an interest rate hike, then that will be positive for the Canadian dollar. And if there isn't, and then that will be negative for Canadian dollars. So that's something we'll have to keep in mind. So at this point, Bank of Canada has said that they're not going to do interest rate hike every single time, but looks like the market is expecting an interest rate hike here. So again, it will be the expectation versus the actual. And a lot of times when they are expecting a hike, generally it's the economists that come up with these projections, right? So generally, there will be an interest rate hike and I say generally, that's why if there isn't, that creates a big gap between expectation and reality. And that's why the price can move quite a bit. So if there's an interest rate hike, again, Canadian dollar will be positive here. If there isn't an interest rate hike, that will be a bigger drop in Canadian dollar because then it does not meet the expectation. So Bank of Canada here, and then there's a press conference. So usually we'll see a move in the market when the rate statement first comes out, and then there's a pullback and a follow through when there is the press conference. So again, keep that in mind. And on Thursday, we have ECB, again, the financing rate, which is the interest rate here, not expected to do an interest rate hike here. They have said that they won't do an interest rate hike till summer of 2019. So there's some time for that. But again, what becomes important here, even though they're not doing the interest rate hike, it will be the comments that they come up with. So especially during the press conference, because we're not really expecting an interest rate hike, so especially during the press conference, the statement will have a big impact. So if they say things like we need to start thinking about changing the monetary policy, or the economy is doing well, so now we need to start cutting back on further on the completely remove the asset purchase program, that type of stuff will be important. So very, very two back-to-back central banks. So very important there. So those will be the two main events for the week. We do have this advanced GDP number on Friday. And again, ECB President Draghi speaking. But I think this press conference from Draghi will be more important than the Friday's press conference. So keep that in mind. Overall, middle of the week looks busier than the beginning of the week there. So towards the middle to the end there is more important. All right, so let's move on. And we will start off by taking a look at our charts here, starting off with the weekly chart. So this is our weekly chart here. So we see that twice now a price has come into the bottom here and then it has pushed off. So we have two indecision candles back to back here. And last week we had talked about how price can go either way, and it went both ways. It went up, it went down, and has closed right in the middle right now. So in this case, the bias is neutral. Again, it can go either way because this week we didn't really get any good indication of what the price was going to do here. At this point, this looks range bound at the moment, so we need to see something really push the market around. So ECB statement could do that, or any kind of developments with the US dollar could have an impact there as well. So bias is neutral. So I would just look for price to go test the high and then basically come back into the range, especially ahead of ECB there. And if price goes into the bottom, I will look for price to pull back into the range here. So I'm just looking for range-bound trading at this moment. And once we have something substantial that pushes the market around, then I'm looking for a break. And whichever way the market breaks to, that's where I would look for price to go to next. So if price breaks out above this 1.1620 level, holds above, then I'm looking for price to go up higher into the top of that range. So I will look for a pullback and then hold, and then if it moves up higher, looking for price to go up higher. But if it breaks out in the bottom here, a bit of a pullback, and looking for price to go into the next support and resistance in the bottom there. Overall, bias is neutral for euro dollar, and it can go either way. Pound dollar here, this one looks more bearish. It is, however, holding the range still. As we can see, for several weeks here, price has just traded in the range, hasn't really done a whole lot. So right now it's towards the bottom of the range. So I will look for a bit of a pullback there and a drop. So bias would be towards the bottom of the range. So slightly bearish bias towards the bottom of the range. 1.2920 will be my target, but we could pull back higher and then drop. So again, this is range bound trading as well here for pound dollar. Price goes into the high. I'm looking for it to come back into the middle of the range. It goes into the bottom here. I'm looking for it to trade towards the middle of the range. So again, both of these are range bound for this week. So again, the move in this case, all I'm really looking for is price to come into the bottom, pushes back high, goes into the high, comes back towards the middle of the range. So unless something specific happens, but right now the bias is neutral. Aussie dollar here. Aussie dollar went and tested this previous support resistance level here, which was correct from our previous week's analysis here. So now it's at an important support resistance level. So in this case, I think this one could drop. So I will look for a price to, as long as it stays below 0.7160 level, I will look for it to drop. So we could get a test high, and if it doesn't break here, looking for it to go lower, because this is an important support resistance level. So bias here would be to the downside, and a target will be the base of this candle here, which is 0.7040 level. So bearish bias for Aussie dollar. This one here is bullish. Last week we were looking for a bullish move, and it's into this next support and resistance level, but the candle close is quite bullish here still. So I think this one could go further higher up here into 0.6670 level, which will be back into this support and resistance level, and potentially all the way into that as well. So bias for New Zealand dollar is bullish. But I would be, right now it is coming into all kinds of support resistance levels here. So I will be mindful of that. But bias is bullish. 0.6720 will be the target to the upside. Dollar CAD here. Dollar CAD has done all kinds of stuff here. It dropped, it went higher. So right now it has closed bullish. So last week's candle was bullish here as well. It has closed bullish here. So I would look for a further move to the upside. First target will be 1.3220. And then next target would be 1.3300. Now, keep in mind, because we have Bank of Canada, a monetary policy report coming out, that is a very, very important news event. And as a result of that, the analysis can change completely, because if they don't raise rates, I'm looking for it to go all the way high, or even all the way into the top there, because that will be perceived as really negative, because the market is expecting an interest rate hike. Now, if they do an interest rate hike, then I'm looking for price to go into the bottom here, 1.2780 level, and potentially even lower into 1.2680 level. So it really depends on how Bank of Canada goes about in that conference. So if they are bullish, if they do an interest rate hike and they talk positively about the economy, then this one could drop. But if they do not do an interest rate hike, then this will go up. But if they do an interest rate hike, sometimes banks do this as well. They do an interest rate hike, but then they are not so positive in their statement, which is kind of like doing a negative rate hike. So that can happen. So that's why we have to be careful with this one. But if we were purely looking at our candles here, in that case, I would look for price to go up higher into 1.3280. But again, be careful with the interest rate hike. So let's have a quick peek at the dollar index here as well, since we are looking at US dollar dollar crosses there. Okay, so with the dollar index, we did see the US dollar go up last week, but now it has pulled back since then. Okay, so this is our dollar index. We saw that price had gone up all the way. It went came very close into that resistance level, and now it has come down. So from our weekly perspective here, it's again range bound. This is why we are seeing the dollar crosses being in the range, because dollar index is in the range here as well. So as we can see, for the last 3 weeks here, price has just gone back and forth between this 96.20 and 94.80. So right now this is range bound. It is holding above the previous high. So there is a slight bullish bias to it. But again, it needs to either go and break above the high or below the low here. So right now, for the last 3 weeks, it's been in this range. So bias for the dollar index is neutral. It can go either way, and it will just have to, it will really depend on which way it goes for us to take action. And whichever way the dollar index goes will have an impact on all the dollar crosses as well. So just keep that in mind. All right, so now moving on to euro pound here, we see that price hasn't really done a whole lot here. This one is also just kind of small move here. It dropped and then it has pushed up higher. Since it has made a higher high and higher low, this looks bullish. I would say I would look for it to go higher into 0.8920 and potentially into 0.8980. But again, euro has that monetary policy statement coming out as well, which will have an impact on euro. So if they are negative in their commentary, all the euro crosses will drop, including this one, in which case it can go all the way into the bottom here. Euro Swiss franc here. So we'll go through the crosses, but just keep that in mind that monetary policy statement will have an impact here. All right, so in this case here, we see that price has moved up, but it hasn't quite broken the high here. So this one traded in a range here as well. We are into resistance right here, and price was not able to break that, and it didn't really break the support either. So this is sideways at the moment. And if it just gets stuck below 1.1490 level, so 1500 level, then chances are it can just come back lower. So kind of like this, price drops, pulls back, drops, pulls back, and then we could see another drop here. Now, if euro goes positive because of monetary policy statement, this will, of course, go up higher. In that case, I would look for price to go all the way into a 1.1650 level, or even potentially higher into this 1.1700. But for now, as long as price stays below 1.1500, then looking for it to drop. Pound yen here, pound Swiss franc. Pound Swiss franc hasn't really done a whole lot. We see that price went into the high and it pulled back. So very, very small move in this case, but it has made lower high and lower low. So in that case, I'm looking for price to go down further. So bias will be to the downside. 1.2820 will be the target here. So bearish bias for pound Swiss franc. Dollar Swiss franc here, this one has gone up higher and looking for price to, so it's bullish. The close is bullish. As we can see, we are into this resistance right here, but there is bullishness in this candle. So this one could go higher into 1.00 or all the way into this high here at 1.0040 or 50 level. So bullish bias for dollar Swiss franc. Pound yen here. Pound yen hasn't really done a whole lot. It's moved back and forth. In terms of our close here, it is quite neutral. It dropped and it has pulled back since then. So the candle close is completely neutral because we have small candle body, 2 pins on either side, which gives us a very neutral bias. So in this case, but it has made a lower high and a lower low. That's why I would say the bias is to the downside, but we may get stuck right into the support level at 145.00. So that will be the target to the downside, 145.00, and then a price could turn around from there. So something like this for pound yen. So slightly bearish bias there. Euro yen, again, things can completely change here, but right now that looks very neutral as well. So if you take a look at the candle, small candle body, and we have pins on either side. So that gives us a very neutral candle close for the weekly here, which means it can go either way. So this is similar to this candle here. So where we have small body and we have pins on either side. So it dropped and then it went up higher. So same thing here as well. If price stays below 130.25, I would look for a retest of that level. If it stays below, then I will look for a price to drop. Otherwise, I will look for I would look for a break and for it to continue higher. But for now, that's the type of move I would look for, a bit of a push to the upside and then a drop to go and test the low and back into the middle again. So bias here is neutral for euro yen. Dollar yen here. Dollar yen, we have a bit of a bullish candle close here. So looking for price to move up higher. So this is bullish. Target would be 113.20 level, which is the top of this pin here. So dollar yen is looking bullish. Aussie yen here, this one is holding below this resistance, support resistance level for the last 2 weeks. It's just traded in this range at the moment. So overall bias is to the downside. However, this one could go either way, but I think my bias overall will be bearish. I think it could pull back a little higher into, see all these pins here? It could pull back higher into that, but overall I would look for it to drop because overarching bias is still to the downside in this one. So I would look for 2 levels for it to retest. One would be 80.65 level, and next one will be 81.20. So basically I'm looking for price to turn at either one of these levels. Either price goes like this and then just drops. In that case, I'm looking for price to test the bottom here, bottom of this candle, or it goes a little higher into 81.20 and then drops from there. So that's Aussie yen. Things are not as clear cut this week as they normally are. This one here, New Zealand dollar, is looking more bullish. We are into resistance here, but I think this one could go higher, all the way into the top of those candles there. So the bias is to the upside. 75.50 will be the target here. So bullish bias for New Zealand yen. CAD yen here, again, CAD yen, things can change, but the bias here is bearish, and we could see a drop. 84.00 will be the target to the downside. So CAD yen is looking bearish, but now when the Canadian dollar news comes out, that can change. So keep that in mind. New Zealand, of all of them, New Zealand dollar seems to be the strongest of the commodity currencies. Okay, so let's go into, let's do these other ones as well while we are here. Pound New Zealand here, a big drop here. So we could see a further drop. Bias is bearish, and target here will be 1.9550 level to the downside. Euro New Zealand, Euro New Zealand here, bias is bearish. We are into support here, so this one we have to be careful with. However, bias is bearish and looking for it to drop further into 0.7200. Yeah. Now, keep in mind, because we are into support, it could turn around here, but overall bias still seems like it's biased to the downside. Euro CAD here, this one is looking bullish here, and we could see it go higher into 1.5320. But if price is not able to break the current high, then it can turn around because it is into resistance. So be careful with this. However, bias right now is to the upside. So I would look for a break, pull back, and then a further move to the upside. So bullish for Euro CAD. Pound CAD here. This one is, let me just get rid of some of these extra levels here. Okay, so this one is kind of holding the support resistance level. So it looks bullish, but it's been in this range. So if it does not break the range, it can come back down. So right now it is bullish. And the first thing to look for would be, can it break through? If it breaks through, I will look for a pullback and then a further move up into 1.7420 level. However, if it does not break this level, then it can just turn back towards the middle of the range. So pound CAD at this point is looking bullish. Again, because there's Canadian dollar news coming out, we have to pay attention to that. In terms of our Euro Aussie here, this one is range bound at the moment. So price has been trading in this range for several weeks now. I will look for price to come and test the low of the range at 1.5980. And then we could see price basically push up from here. But right now, this one is looking very much range bound at the moment. So we could get one of these moves, or we do have a big pin in the bottom of this candle, which means price can go like this and then come back towards the range. So best trades here, in my opinion, will be just either the high of the range or so selling at the high of the range or buying at the bottom of the range. Pound Aussie here. Overall, this one is looking bearish. So we could see a drop here. The next target would be, we are into support, so do keep that in mind. Next target here would be 1.7930. So when we are into support, that just means that price can turn around from here, because overall here, there is this trend line going up, which could keep it higher. I could grab there we go, pen. So as we see here, there's that trend line here. So it could just bounce from here. That's something to keep in mind. So based on the candle close here, we are kind of neutral. We have small candle body in the middle and 2 pins on either side. So we're seeing a lot of these candles, indecision candles this week. So we just have to be careful. We have to give the market a chance to show its hand and then take the trade, instead of just looking for our bias and taking it in that direction. So with this one, because it's neutral, there's that trend line. This one could go either way. So we could see price come and test the low once again and then go up, or it can just go higher from here as well. So keep that in mind for Pound Aussie. Let's take a look at gold. Gold has been trading here for the whole week here. Overall, this is looking bullish. So last week was bullish, and this week we have a bullish candle close. But see how it's been hanging out here. So good thing here is that it's holding above the previous high here. So this is our previous high. It's holding above, and chances are when price holds above like this, it will go through. So based on that, and based on the daily candle close here, the bias is bullish, and we could go higher here. The first target is 1246.50, and then above that we have 1265.93, so about 1266. So those will be the two targets to the upside. But I'd keep an eye on the daily here, because if it doesn't break this 1232 level, then it can turn around there. It can just go and test the high and come back, because it's been trading in this range. It could very well do this. So that would be the caution. But based on the weekly here, it looks bullish. And once it breaks the high, I would look for it to go into 1246 and then 1266. Oil here. Oil, a bearish candle close this week, looking for it to drop further. Target here would be 66.92 and then 65. So right now, last week was bearish. We were looking for it to drop. It did. And I would again look for a bit of a pullback here. Another drop, 66.92, which is the bottom of this candle. That will be the target. So bearish bias for oil. Copper here. Copper is sideways here for a number of weeks. As we can see, hasn't really done much. This looks like one of those I think it was Euro Aussie or something. Similar to that, we have a pin in the bottom, we have pin on top. Neutral here, it can go either way for copper. So no clear direction, it's range bound. And let's take a look at silver here. Silver, very neutral again. So we're seeing a lot of these neutral candle closes. So we have small candle body pins on both sides. This is an indecision candle, so neutral bias for silver as well. So again, we are just waiting on the market to show us direction, and then we can take a trade. So I would say neutral, price goes into the high of 1483. I would look for a reversal there, goes into the low. I would look for a reversal and move back towards the middle of the range unless it breaks through, and then I will look for a continuation. But for now, this is neutral. Bitcoin here. Bitcoin hasn't really done much here. Again, it's been trading in this range. So I will look for it to drop a little bit further. Hasn't broken the high here. It's holding below the resistance here. So I would just look for it to come back lower towards 61.20 level. First towards 62.43, but 61.20 is the level that I'm looking for it to come towards. So bearish bias on Bitcoin. Not exactly bearish, more range bound, but just looking for it to move towards the bottom of the range. All right, any questions now? Okay, I do not see any questions, so we'll wrap it up here. Looks like I've covered everything. You guys have a wonderful weekend, and I will see you next week then. You're welcome. Bye for now.